Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I have a Slimline card featuring some stamps from the ink blot shop. I'm going to be starting with my cat Scrappiness stitched scallop Slimline dies and using the largest die, and then I'm going to be using the ink blot shop Winging It stamp set as well as their big block alphas. The inspiration for this card was twofold. I wanted to use the just bug 'cause sentiment, but I wanted to make the bug part a bit more of a prominent part of the card, so I'm going to be stamping it with the big block alphas. What's really awesome about those particular set of alphas is, and I won't be using that feature in this card, but there are doubles of all the vowels and common letters like S, N, L, T, etc. But I'm just going to be using the 3 letters today. I also wanted to use all of the bugs from the Winging It stamp set, so I wanted to make sure my card had plenty of room. You probably could fit them all on an A2 size card, but I just thought this would be a fun look. So I'm going to have the bug and the rest of the sentiment down in the grass with the grasshopper, and then the rest of the bugs spread throughout the sky. To mask, I wanted to create masks of everything because I'm going to be making it sort of a 1 layer. The panel is going to be 1 layer, although there's going to be extra layers, so it's not technically a 1 layer card. And therefore I need a mask anyway. I took this full sheet piece of full sticky post-it note sheet. I don't know the exact way to phrase it, but like they're sticky all over the back of it instead of just at the top, but it's a post-it note. And by stamping it on that first, I was able to make sure I like the positioning, and then I can use it as a mask. They are fairly thin masks, so they're not super durable. I don't feel like you can't use them too many times, but it does do the trick, and it's really easy to cut and use. Also, I'm going to be using the extra scraps, so that's another piece of that same post-it note to mask off the rest of the sentiment. So I want to have the word just, and then at the bottom the word 'cause. I'm going to do this by making sure first that my stamp is really, really clean because I don't want any extra old ink to get over on my project. I will cover everything but the just. I will ink the stamp, then I will lift up that paper. So if there were any extra ink from an old project, all of that still, like the bug 'cause part, is still going to come in contact with my paper. So it has to be really, really clean. I am not one who keeps my stamps really, really clean. I had to go to the sink and specifically wash the stamps in between each of these uses. But it did create a really fun custom sentiment that I was quite happy with. So once I had that on there, I was ready to think about where I wanted to place all of my bugs and how I wanted to arrange my scene. These are the masks, but what's nice about clear stamps is that you would be able to actually place the stamps down themselves and help arrange it, as long as they're clean, again, because you don't want to be spreading ink all over your project. I ultimately decided not to use the firefly because I thought it kind of didn't make sense in an otherwise daytime scene. So I'll just use the butterfly bee and dragonfly up at the top. And the grasshopper, I'm going to make it look like his feet are actually like he's standing on the letters, just so that he has a little bit of interaction with them. In general, there's different little things you can do to make your scene feel a little like make it kind of flow and connect and to the viewer more. And that is like making the sentiment interact with one of the elements, or even having the elements, like if you were making multiple animals, letting them overlap each other so it looked like they were more interacting with each other. It just really helps tie things together. But another thing I did here is the dragonfly at the top, he's hanging off the card a little bit, and the reason I chose to do that is so it looks like he's moving into the space of the card. It adds a little bit of a dynamic look there. But an alternative that you could do is there's movement lines in the stamp set, and adding those can again give a sense of movement. So when I did these masks for the bugs, there was a lot of little details, and I didn't mask those off. Like I didn't mask off eyelashes and antenna and the stinger of the bee or anything like that. So that can help you save a lot of time and fuss with masking. But also, if you're masking off letters, don't worry about trying to just cut out the middle. Cut through the side of the letter and get that middle out, because once you put the mask back down, that seam is going to be self-sealing and it's not going to be a problem. So I'm going to very carefully trim that out here. I will be putting my Distress ink, my Distress Oxide inks down, and then I will be using my Copics to color those little areas on top of it, like the little eyelashes on the grasshopper. But there is a chance that that could have a negative impact on your Copic nibs. So I just want to say that is a personal choice. If you're concerned, maybe use a black pen or another colored pen that you have in your collection instead of a more expensive material like your Copic markers. So I'm ready to blend out the sky. I'm starting with just a hint of blueprint sketch. I'll be adding a lot of Mermaid Lagoon and also a lot of Broken China. I decided to make it multiple colors just for some interest, just to, make it look a little like there was something more happening. And I'm also going to spritz the background for the same reason. Not because it's necessarily realistic, but just because I think it will catch the eye of the viewer more, or the card recipient. I am using a blender brush. These are off of Amazon, but I also own the Picket Fence Studio brushes, which are excellent. I do kind of like having the color of the brush, and I think Tailored Expressions makes those, but they were like out of stock for a really long time. All the brushes seem to work pretty similar to me, but I do definitely understand that desire to support small craft companies. So if you're looking for colored brushes and want to support a small craft company, which I definitely encourage, try Tailored Expressions. I like the brushes in general because, and you probably could do this with the foam pads, but it always scared me. Like the colors just seem to, like the old colors seem to stay on the foam. Whereas with the brushes, I can use the same brush for all my blues and I don't feel like I'm getting as much of the old color transferring into like the new area. It's just not as much of a problem. So that's why I'm leaning more towards the brushes. I'm working on my Ranger craft sheet. There's a lot of other nice inking surfaces out there, and I feel like they're always coming out with a cool new one, but my craft sheet works, so I've stuck with it even though it's not very pretty. I'm using a piece of Post-it note tape to mask off the sky and the ground. I kind of wish I had like a grass stencil that would do this because I know Lawn Fawn makes one, but I've been having a really hard time finding like in stock in the same store as like anything else I wanted to purchase, but I think that would be a really cute way to create a similar background because their grass stencil covers the grass and then covers the sky, so you get a really clean line with their stencil. All right, so after I clean up, we're ready for the fun part where you get to like see when you take all of the stencils away, all the masks away, what everything looks like underneath. For the grass, I used Twisted Citron as the lighter green, and then Mowed Grass is the darker green. I remember when I first discovered Distress inks, the first ones I bought were Mowed Lawn and Broken China because I was like, I know what I want to do with Distress inks is make skies and grasses and put my critters in them. So this kind of reminded me of that. As you can see, when I did the ink blending over the black stamping, it actually caused to knock back a bit because Distress Oxides have pigment ink in them. What I personally chose to do was just trace over any of those areas, but if you were thinking ahead, you could leave most of those stamps in your MISTI and just restamp or your stamp positioner tool. And I happen to use one. You wouldn't need that for this project. It's just one way that a MISTI could save you time in this particular instance. So at this point, I'm just going to basically be doing Copic Coloring for the rest of the video. So if that's not so much your thing, thanks for checking out. But here I am using YG09, 06, and 03 for the Grasshopper. He is kind of going to blend into the grass, but that's of course what a grasshopper would do and would want to do, to hide from their prey and hide from their predators. I'm going to be doing a really simple blending. And the main thing that I'm going to try to do to make my Copic Coloring interesting on these rather small images, and they're very cartoony, they don't have like a lot of little tiny super realistic detail. So I'm going to kind of play into that and be a little bit more cartoony with my coloring as well. And I'm just going to add a teeny tiny touch of shadow. a teeny tiny touch of midtone, and then most of my color, like most of the surface area of the head, the wing, etc., is going to be my lightest color. And that high contrast tends to work well for a simple image. So here for the butterfly, I wanted to have a pink butterfly overall. Butterflies always make me think of my mom, and her favorite color is pink, but I will be using R markers. There's a couple of R sets that look more pink. And so R89, 85, 83, and 81. I will say the 89 maybe was a little too far, a little too red, but I do tend to like that, just that tiny touch of high contrast. I think it adds a lot of interest. So I did decide to go with it, but I could understand if you might want to skip it to get a little bit smoother of a blend here. I am basing where I add my shadows on the idea that the light might be coming from above them where the sun is. So a lot of my shadows are going to be on like the underside of the belly or the underside of the head. But I'm also going to think a little bit about drop shadows. So the large heads would cause a bit of a shadow underneath onto their bodies. For the Bumblebee, I'm going to be using Y38, 35, and 32. This is actually a pretty orangey blend for yellow. However, that was an intentional choice because I thought it would really pop off the really cool blue background a bit more than a softer, paler yellow. It was a little bit like, I mean, obviously the bee is supposed to be yellow. That's, I didn't have to think too much about that. But I was having a little bit of difficulty when I was choosing colors because, the kind of inclination of animals is to blend in with their habitat. So how do you make that grasshopper stand out? Or the dragonfly, a lot of the dragonflies that I was looking at were very blue-green, and that would blend really well that would potentially blend into the sky. So I tried to be really thoughtful as I picked my colors, like making sure that my blue-green had enough green in it that it stood off from the more pure blue of the sky. And with the grasshopper, I made sure that a lot of him was in the sky and it wasn't just like, his whole body wasn't in the ground, because I thought that a little bit would help him stand out a bit more. So I'm using BG 4945 and then jumping all the way down to a 2.3 because I did not have anything, and I actually don't even think there is a Copic that's like a 4.3 or anything like that. But if you're trying to mix across color groups, if you still go down in the last number, it can help you to have a lighter color. Like that would be the easy way to do it. You don't want to go from a BG 4.5 up to like a 5.6 or even a 3.6. You'd want to go down in the last number as well. I did add a little bit of bee, either triple or quadruple zero, to the wings of the bee and the dragonfly, because you would be able to, they're translucent and you would be able to see the sky through them. For the letters, I'm going to just color one on camera to keep things a little bit shorter, but I'm going to make a really simple blend, and I used BV 08, 04, and 02 for the main color, and then I think it's a BV 2A, just a really, really, really dark BV for that shadow that is included as part of the artist drawn lines in the letter here. And that purple will really pop off of the green and again draw your attention to the grasshopper, because he's sitting on it, even though he's green in the green grass. I'm going to be using a combination of my ATG gun and my Barely Arts glue to really make sure this adheres down, because with these larger cards and dies, you really want to have a good amount of adhesive, especially if you add any embellishments. Like this is actually just one layer, so it probably would have been fine, but I just don't like my cards I don't have to worry about them falling apart in the heat of the summer and all that. So I put it on a piece of a black layer and then onto my Slimline card base. A Slimline card is 3.5 by 8.5. And that's it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafting tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I will leave you links to the products used in the video description below. Have an awesome day. Bye.